Hello, it's Simon Zutshi, and in this video we're going to talk about the UK in crisis and the effect on UK property. So my name is Simon Zutshi. I've been investing in property since 1995. I've been teaching other people like you how to become successful investors since 2003. And over the last 20 years of teaching people, I've seen all sorts of things happen. We've seen booming markets, we've seen the credit crunch, and the latest thing to happen, we've seen coronavirus, and now the war in Ukraine. What's happening in Ukraine is an absolute tragedy. You know, the world leaders are up in arms about this, quite rightly, but there are some fundamental effects far beyond the human impact in Ukraine. There are some other effects I want to talk about on this particular video and the effect they have on UK property. So first of all, the biggest, most obvious impact straight away is the effect on energy prices. Energy prices have been going up anyway over the last year or so, but the effect of the war in Ukraine, the crisis there, has really compounded this, because obviously a lot of energy, gas, comes from Russia and comes from the Baltic states, and with the embargoes put on Russia, it means the cost of energy is massively going up. So what does that mean? Well, the average homeowner, they're going to be paying a lot more for their energy, so it's not good for them. But for us as property investors, it also has a knock-on effect in two very distinct ways. There's the obvious effect if we have serviced accommodation or we have HMOs where typically you, the landlord, will pay the bills. You're going to see the effect of that increase in costs. On some of my energy bills, on some of my HMOs, I've seen the cost double. And you know, that has a big impact on cash flow. Now, if you have a very profitable strategy, such as HMO, such as serviced accommodation, you can probably afford to cover that extra cost. I mean, it means less profit for us, but obviously those bills you can offset against your rental income to reduce your tax. So although it means less cash flow, if you've got a really good property in the first place, it's not completely disastrous. I do feel for people though who've got properties where they're paying for the bills and they're only marginal properties. They're not making a huge amount of profit. So what can you actually do? Well, one of the things you can do is you can potentially speak to your tenants about increasing the rent. Because remember, every landlord is in the same situation. And landlords are either swallowing that cost themselves and just making less profit, or they're looking to pass that extra cost onto their tenants. And you know, it's news. Everyone knows it. It's not like you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes. Everyone knows the increasing costs. So you could pass some on your rent. You could have a fair usage policy in your property. So if they exceed a certain amount, then they start contributing. And I suggest you just have a conversation with your tenants and let them know that all landlords are going to be doing this, which is probably the reality. Personally, I've not put my rents up. I'm just seeing what happens. The government are bringing in help and assistance, trying to talk about capping rates. But until this crisis in Ukraine is over, I think we're going to see these high costs of fuel for the foreseeable future. So that's the obvious effect. The other effect for us as property investors is the effect it has on inflation. So inflation is the cost of living, and included in inflation is the cost of energies. So with energy prices soaring up, this will cause even more pressure on inflation. Now, for most people, inflation is not a good thing. It's the cost of living. If inflation is high, it means it costs more to live. And if wages aren't keeping up, it means people effectively have less money in their pocket at the end of each month and end of each year. However, for us as property investors, inflation is actually a good thing, because inflation means rents go up, it means property prices go up as well, and that's why we've seen property prices consistently go up in the UK. They sometimes correct, they don't always go up, they go up and they go down, but the long-term trend in the UK is up because we have an island with a limited supply of accommodation, an increasing population, and we have inflation that causes prices over time to go up. So as property investors, well, we've borrowed money normally on an interest-only mortgage. Let's say we borrow £150,000 and it's interest only. At the end of the 20-year term, we still owe that money. But at the end of 20 years, £150,000 is worth a lot less in real terms because of inflation. That $150,000 buys a lot less than it did 20 years prior to that. So inflation is actually good for us as property investors. Now the risk with high inflation, typically the Bank of England uses interest rates as a macroeconomic tool to control inflation. So what that means is they will put interest rates up to calm down the economy and thus bring inflation under control. That's what they normally do. And we have seen interest rates start to creep up. So the effect of the Ukraine crisis, fuel prices going up, that causes inflation going up, that could have a knock-on effect on us as property investors, causing higher interest rates. And obviously that's going to affect our cash flow. There are a couple of things we can do here. We can obviously fix our mortgage rates. We can fix for 5 years. I've just secured a mortgage at 2.7% for 5 years. I'm pretty happy with that. I still make lots of money for my property. So you can certainly fix your interest rates. The other thing you might want to think about doing is if you've got properties that are on variable rates and you've got lots of equity there, maybe it might be a good time to refinance those to increase the debt. And some of my clients have actually remortgaged their properties, and because the rates are so low at the moment, they've actually got onto a lower rate than they were paying, and they've had some cash out of the deal. And sometimes it actually costs them about the same amount because they were now on a lower rate than they were on before, even though they've got higher borrowing. So looking at your properties and thinking about remortgaging might be a really good idea to fix those interest rates in, because the Bank of England might increase interest rates further. However, I think they're going to be reluctant to do so. And the reason is we've seen rates creep up a little bit, but the government has borrowed so much money to help fund the recovery from the coronavirus pandemic that the government owes a lot of money and it pays lots of interest on that money. And if interest rates go up, it might struggle to meet all of its payments, and that would be a big problem for the whole country. So the Bank of England, although they would normally put interest rates up to help compensate for high inflation, which we're going to see as a direct result of the Ukraine crisis and fuel prices going up, well, actually what it means is that they've been a little more cautious than they might normally be. And we haven't seen the kind of interest rate rises we have seen in the past, but I think they're going to see the slight creep, but not a big jump. The other effect, obviously, of the Ukraine crisis is that there's a lot of people fleeing Ukraine. You know, Poland is taking on lots of people. The UK got lots of criticism of being very, very slow to bring people in. I was recently on holiday and I just came back to the airport and there was a welcome desk saying, you know, welcome to Ukraine citizens who are just arriving. And it's great to see people who are fleeing this terrible, terrible situation in their home country and coming to somewhere that's welcoming them, looking after them. I'm not sure how many people are going to come in. You know, the UK government have set up this policy where they're looking for homeowners who've got spare rooms in their properties to help house some of these people. So if you've got spare rooms in your home, there's an opportunity to house build and do a bit of good to help these people out, and the government are going to pay you for that. So that's a bit of a windfall income that some people are going to get for doing a really good thing and helping some of these people. But, you know, it depends how many people are taken in as, you know, as asylum seekers, fleeing the crisis over there. I think it's going to put pressure on the resources in the UK in terms of, you know, there may not be enough emergency housing. And so I think the area of social housing, supported living, is going to be a really big boom area in the property market right now. So anything that happens in the UK or happens in the world normally has an impact somehow on the property market. Sometimes it's an adverse effect, sometimes it's a good effect. I don't see the Ukraine situation, the Ukraine crisis being a really big problem for us in the UK, as long as we don't see the war spreading to more of Europe. I think the Russian Prime Minister is keen to take back some of the former Soviet Union states. Invading the rest of Europe would mean war with NATO, and obviously that's a big consequence, and that could be ultimately World War III. So if World War III happens, well, we've got some big problems to think about, far more than our property prices in the UK. But obviously everything that happens, for everything, there's an inverse reaction to that. I don't see the Ukraine crisis having that much of an impact on property prices, apart from what I've already mentioned. So in summary, These things happen around the world. These things happen in our country. People often panic. You know, look at the panic that was created when we had coronavirus. There was a massive uncertainty. There was a big problem in the commercial sector, but actually the residential sector boomed because there was money available. There were all the incentives from the government to stimulate the property market. And so for this reason, we saw a massive boom during what most people, myself included, thought would be a bit of a problem time. So my view is, if you know what you're doing and you're educated, you find good property investments and you're looking to hold them long term, and you follow the 5 golden rules from Property Magic, which is buy from motivated sellers, buy in an area of strong rental demand, buy for positive cash flow, buy for the long term, and get a cash buffer. If you follow the golden rules, it doesn't really matter what's happening in the world. And the reality is this: people will always need somewhere to live. And if you have good quality accommodation at an affordable price, you should always be able to find tenants. Sometimes things happen in our economy and we have big unemployment, so the nature of tenants might shift. Rather than private individuals might go to people who are on benefits, and that might well happen more depending on what happens to the economy. But people always need accommodation. That's what you need to understand. So it's about educating yourself, it's about getting out there, taking action, buy those investment properties, so those what I call cash machines that can keep generating cash for you. And look, don't feel bad about making money from property. We are providing much needed accommodation in the UK. If it weren't private landlords like us providing good quality accommodation, there'd be an even bigger crisis in the UK. Rents would be even more because of a shortage. So actually we are helping the average person in the UK who can't afford their own home have somewhere great to live. So don't be ashamed of being a property investor. You should be proud of it because we are giving a much needed service. I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on this. Please put your questions below or comments below, and I'll come and answer as many as I possibly can. If you like this video, please tick the like button, maybe subscribe to the channel. We have regular videos coming out, have interviews with successful investors. This is designed to give you lots of information to help you become a more successful investor. I've got another video lined up for you, and I always encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill. I do hope you got massive value from watching this YouTube video. I'd encourage you to click on the link below to come and do the online training with me. And I've got another video lined up for you, which I think is also going to be really useful, that you should watch once you've registered for the online training with me. So invest with knowledge, invest with skill. I'll see you very soon.